Some coming out moments feel like fireworks, others like a record scratch across the internet. This episode of Rainbow Spotlight is for the jaw drops, the "hold up, he's gay?" scroll stops, and the moments where entire comment sections said, "Why didn't anyone tell me?" From soft-spoken indie actors to chart-topping TikTok stars, these 5 men didn't just surprise us. They rewrote what queerness can look like. Because sometimes being gay doesn't come with a glitter cannon. Sometimes it just is. Quiet. Casual. Devastatingly hot. Which moment had you blinking at your screen in shock? Drop a 1 to 5 in the comments and tag someone who also didn't know but totally should have. Let's relive the chaos. Let's honor the silence breaking. Let's say it louder this time. Yeah, he's one of us. Manu Rios, the Spanish heartthrob who didn't have to say a word. Some people come out with a post, others with a headline. And then there's Manu Ríos. He didn't come out. He simply existed. In perfectly tailored shirts, pearl necklaces, sun-kissed selfies, and energy so queer-coded that the internet didn't even ask if he was gay. They just said, "We know." Best known for his role as Patrick in Elite, Manu quickly became one of the most talked-about young actors on Netflix. His character? Outside, wild, complicated. But Manu himself? Mysterious. He never labeled, never denied, never confirmed. He just kept showing up in looks that screamed Vogue Spain and body language that whispered unbothered, moisturized, possibly into boys. And still, every time he posted, fans flooded the comments with some version of, "Wait, is he actually gay? I thought he was just serving aesthetics. He's too perfect to be straight." The truth is, Manu Ríos mastered the art of the non-confirmation. He played openly gay roles. He supported pride. He followed every queer fashion cue and left room for everyone to interpret what they wanted. And let's be honest, for queer fans, that's half the fun. What made Manu's moment so internet-breaking wasn't a specific statement. It was the accumulation. 1,000 photos, 100 thirst traps, the tension of knowing but never being told. Then, in subtle ways, came the soft confirmations. Photos holding hands with a male model in Milan. A no-labels interview where he said love doesn't need boundaries. His presence at queer fashion events, front row and unbothered. He never screamed it, because he didn't need to. For Gen Z viewers, Manu Ríos became the face of a new kind of queerness. Not defined, not performative, just present. He doesn't explain himself to anyone. He lets his presence do the work, and the internet felt it. And maybe that's why he broke the internet. Not by surprising us with who he is, but by never hiding it and never caring what we called it. Because sometimes being queer isn't about coming out. It's about showing up. Drop a 5 if Manu's presence has ever left you speechless. And drop a sparkles if his silent power says more than any label ever could. Omar Apollo. The vibe was gay before the words were. There's a special kind of chaos that happens when a hot, stylish, genre-bending musician refuses to label himself, but makes every fan feel something queer anyway. Enter Omar Apollo. From the very beginning, he played with tone, tension, and tenderness in a way that had people asking, "Wait, he's not straight, right?" And yet, for the longest time, there was no confirmation. No post, no tweet, just vibes. Dangerous, sultry, unmistakably queer-coded vibes. He sang about boys. He wore pearls, painted nails, crop tops. But when asked about his sexuality in early interviews, he'd give a coy laugh or dodge the question entirely. And somehow, that just made fans thirst and theorize even more. Songs like Kamikaze, Frio, or Evergreen weren't subtle. They dripped with longing, regret, softness, and pronouns. He didn't flip them. He leaned into them. And still, he didn't say it outright. Then came the tweet. In response to a fan accusing him of queerbaiting, Omar fired back, No, I be gay. Don't play W me. Just like that. 7 words. Internet equals broken. It was the most nonchalant confirmation of queerness we'd seen in years. And maybe that's why it hit so hard. Because fans didn't need a press tour. They already knew. They just needed the moment. And Omar gave it, with a wink and a middle finger. Suddenly, everything he'd done made even more sense. The way he moved, the way he looked at the camera, the way he sang about heartbreak like it was both holy and haunted. Omar didn't come out. He just let the world catch up. He represents a new generation of queer men in pop culture, Latino, fluid, fearless, and uninterested in your boxes. He's not here to explain himself. He's here to feel, to create, to flirt, to exist loudly in the space between. And honestly, that's more powerful than any announcement. For fans who've been forced to declare who they are just to be seen, Omar's approach felt liberating, messy, chill, valid. He made it okay to be soft and sexual, proud and private. And maybe that's why, when he finally tweeted the truth, the internet didn't just gasp, it celebrated. Like we'd all been waiting for someone to just own it in their own way. Drop a 2 if Omar's music ever made you feel gayer than you expected. And drop a fire emoji if the moment he said be gay lives rent-free in your brain forever. Jack Dylan Grazer, the Gen Z icon, who came out without even trying. Some coming outs are planned, polished, choreographed. And then there's Jack Dylan Grazer. You probably know him as the quirky best friend from It or the wild kid from Shazam. Loud, expressive, chaotic in a way that only Gen Z can truly master. He's that rare type of actor who doesn't act like a star. He's just there, fully himself, fully unpredictable. Which is why when he came out as bisexual, casually mid-livestream, the internet didn't just take notice, it froze. Picture this: Jack reading fan comments on TikTok Live, laughing, answering questions, goofing off. Then, out of nowhere, someone asks about his orientation. He grins, leans forward, and says, "I'm bi, bitch," and moves on, like he just said what he had for lunch. No press release, no rainbow graphic, no "I have something to share" energy. Just vibes, just truth, just a Jack Dylan Grazer moment, and the fans lost their minds. For many, it was the first time they'd seen someone that famous, that young, and that carefree about queerness. He wasn't trying to be a role model. He wasn't chasing headlines. He was just vibing. And in doing so, he accidentally became a queer icon. What made it even more powerful was how normal it felt. There was no drama, no debate, just a sense of, yeah, this is me. Anyway, next question. And yet, for young queer fans watching, especially those who felt pressured to script their own coming out, that moment meant everything. Because Jack represented a future where queerness isn't always a crisis or a revelation. Sometimes it's just a part of you that shows up mid-livestream with a smile and a wink. Of course, the media tried to catch up. Articles were written. Twitter went into overdrive. But Jack, he didn't clarify. He didn't capitalize. He just kept being himself. Wild, weird, unpredictable, and now proudly bi. Since then, fans have rewatched his scenes in It and Luca with new eyes. Not because he was acting gay, but because they saw the spark. The same spark he finally named. And in a world that still loves to box people in, Jack Dylan Grazer reminded us, labels are fine. Honesty is better. And sometimes, a chaotic TikTok Live does more for visibility than 100 interviews ever could. Drop a 1 if Jack's casual chaos made you smile. And drop a lightning bolt if his "I'm bi, bitch" energy is forever iconic. Ben Platt, the Broadway boy who was always gay, but still surprised us. If you know Broadway, you know Ben Platt. He's the powerhouse voice behind Dear Evan Hansen, the kid with anxious charm in Pitch Perfect, and more recently, the sweet, awkward soul in Theater Camp. In other words, the guy you just assume is gay. But here's the twist. A lot of people didn't. Despite his flamboyance on stage, despite his connection to musical theater, despite the fact that he literally sang his feelings for a living, Ben somehow flew under the gaydar for a surprising number of fans. Maybe because he wasn't out when he became famous? Maybe because he didn't lean into queer branding? Maybe because people just weren't paying attention? So when he publicly came out in 2019, not in an interview but through the music video for Ease My Mind, featuring a romantic storyline with another man, the response was a collective double-take. Wait, he's gay? And not in a mocking way, more like a "how did we miss this" kind of way. Ben didn't need to make a statement. He just existed in his truth, let the art do the talking, and kept it moving. That quiet confidence? It spoke louder than anything. Part of what made the reveal so fascinating was that Ben never really played queer on screen or stage before coming out. His characters were always tender, yes, Mirai, but in ways that left audiences projecting straight narratives onto them. Ben's queerness wasn't hidden. It just wasn't packaged. And that made his coming out feel like a slow burn, the kind where all the clues were there, but no one connected them until he lit the match himself. Since then, Ben has leaned into his identity more openly, on and off screen. He starred in The Politician, embraced his romance with fellow actor Noah Galvin, they're now engaged, and became a symbol of soft musical masculinity that doesn't shy away from vulnerability. What makes Ben's journey so powerful is that he represents a kind of gay visibility that's less about shock value and more about subtlety and softness. He's not edgy or overtly sexual, he's warm, he's emotional, he feels things out loud, and that's its own kind of queer power. So yes, it may have surprised some people when he came out. But for those of us watching closely, it made perfect sense. Ben Platt didn't have to scream, "I'm gay." He just sang it, in falsetto with his whole heart. Drop a 4 if Ben's voice ever gave you goosebumps. And drop a microphone if queer softness like his is exactly what we need more of in media. Andrew Scott. When the hot priest turned out to be ours. There's something particularly delicious about discovering that a man who played the most dangerously charming priest in TV history is, in fact, gay. Not gay in theory, not coded, but openly, quietly, confidently gay. When Andrew Scott appeared as the hot priest in Fleabag, the internet didn't just thirst, it unraveled. The voice, the eyes, the collar, the sin. He was sexy in a way that didn't feel performative. It felt intimate, intellectual, taboo in the best way. And so, when casual fans learned he was gay in real life, the reaction was pure disbelief. Wait, he's gay? It didn't compute. He didn't look gay. He wasn't campy. He wasn't flamboyant. He was magnetic, tortured, restrained, a walking contradiction that drew everyone in. But those who had been watching him for years, they knew. Andrew Scott came out publicly in 2013, long before Fleabag made him a global crush. But because his roles were often complex, tragic, or villainous, Sherlock Black Mirror, his queerness never became a headline until people started noticing. And when they noticed, they couldn't stop. The internet lit up with TikToks and Twitter threads. Gay men are reclaiming Andrew Scott. Straight women are grieving. Suddenly I feel safe and flustered. It was a beautiful kind of chaos. What made it so impactful wasn't just the surprise. It was what Andrew represents. A queer man who is sexy, grown, and serious. A reminder that queerness isn't always glitter and crop tops. Sometimes it's in the nuance, the stare, the stillness. He didn't have to shout his identity. He embodied it. In interviews, he's been honest about how playing gay characters is not a box, but an expansion. That queerness can be universal. And that being out has made him not just a better actor, but a freer one. His performance in All of Us Strangers, 2023, solidified that power. Raw, devastating, beautiful. He wasn't playing a gay man. He was showing us how grief, love, memory, and identity blur in the quietest places. And through it all, he never catered to straight expectations. He just existed as himself, smart, soulful, queer, unapologetic. So yes, Andrew Scott is gay, and if you're just finding that out, welcome. You're not late. You're just on time to feel everything he makes us feel. Drop a 3 if Andrew's subtle power made you question everything. And drop A if Hot Priest unlocked something you weren't ready to name. Sometimes being out doesn't mean being loud. Sometimes it's a look, a lyric, a line in an interview, a moment where the internet leans in and whispers, "Wait, he's gay?" And that's the magic. These stories remind us that queerness doesn't wear one uniform. It can be chaotic, soft, quiet, defiant, or all of that at once. It can live in a viral tweet or in a silence that still speaks volumes. Whether they came out with a bang or with a shrug, these 5 men didn't just make us gasp, they made us see queerness differently. They broke the internet not with controversy, but with clarity, style, and honesty. Drop a 1 to 5 in the comments. Whose story caught you off guard in the best way? And if you've ever whispered, "He's one of us," even before you knew for sure, you're not alone. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the bell. Because at Rainbow Spotlight, queerness always has another layer worth uncovering.